Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a nurse suspended in a row over sharing a changing space with a transgender doctor is suing NHS 5. Sandy Peggy claims being made to get changed beside Dr Beth Upton amounted to unlawful harassment under the Equality Act. Also on tonight's programme, after Donald Trump signals the EU will be hit with tariffs, is the UK next? We'll find out what it could mean for Scotland's biggest exports.
You see people pulling into this car park right here behind us to take their shot down the glen here, but of course in the foreground you've got all this plastic rubbish.
Discarded plastic is causing problems for one of Scotland's most famous beauty spots. Is a new national recycling scheme the solution?
Coming up in the sport, it's the final day of the transfer window, but are there any big moves on the cards? We'll bring you all the news and rumours ahead of the 11 o'clock deadline.
And later in the programme, we'll tell you what made John Swinney say this.
We have absolutely no intention of banning cats.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. A nurse who was suspended after complaining about sharing a changing room with a transgender colleague is giving evidence at an employment tribunal. Sandy Peggy claims being made to get changed beside Dr Beth Upton, who is a trans woman, amounted to unlawful harassment under the Equality Act. Miss Peggy's claim is disputed by NHS 5, which has described the case as unnecessary and vexatious. Our reporter Stephen Godden has the story.
Sandy Peggy has been an NHS 5 nurse for more than 30 years. Today, she arrived to give evidence at a tribunal in a dispute that centres on the use of a hospital changing room. Nurse Peggy claims that being made to share a changing room with a transgender colleague, Dr Beth Upton, amounts to harassment under the Equality Act. Acknowledging it is a contentious area, the tribunal judge addressed the issue of language at the start of the hearing, ruling that each side could use their preferred pronouns when stating their case. Nurse Peggy's lawyers would refer to Dr Upton as he, and Dr Upton's counsel would say she. Sandy Peggy told the tribunal that when they first met on shift at Kirkcaldy's Victoria Hospital in August 2023, she thought Dr Upton was male. That same month, she said she walked into the changing room and saw Dr Upton, who is a trans woman, sitting on a bench. Nurse Peggy said she was embarrassed and upset that Dr Upton was allowed to use a changing room that had a female-only sign on the door. After walking out and waiting for Dr Upton to leave, she said she spoke to her line manager, who told her it would get sorted. Following a similar incident in early November, the tribunal heard a third incident on Christmas Eve involved Dr Upton starting to undress beside Nurse Peggy.
I told him I was embarrassed and intimidated and I didn't think he should have been in there. Beth informed me that he had as much right to be there as I did. I told him that wasn't true. If I wanted to get changed in front of a man, I would have went to the male changing rooms.
The tribunal heard within days Sandy Peggy was placed on special leave and later suspended as NHS 5 bosses investigated a complaint of bullying. Questioned by her employer's legal team, Nurse Peggy denied treating Beth Upton differently to other colleagues. It was put to her, your dislike of Beth Upton was so strong that you refused to work with her to the disadvantage of patients. I disagree with that, she replied. The reason you did that, it was put to her, is because she's trans. No, definitely not, was Nurse Peggy's reply. NHS 5 and Dr Upton dispute Sandy Peggy's claim. The tribunal will continue hearing evidence tomorrow. Stephen Godden, Reporting Scotland, Dundee.
The worlds of business and politics have spent much of the day digesting and dissecting comments made by Donald Trump overnight. The US president intimated he would impose trade tariffs on goods from the European Union after announcing similar measures for Canada, Mexico and China. It means that US businesses will have to pay more to import products from these countries, which would affect foreign trade. At the moment, it's unclear if the US will target the UK with similar tariffs. We'll get the thoughts of our business and economy editor Douglas Fraser in just a moment. But first, here's what Donald Trump told the BBC.
European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. but the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
Well, as promised, let's speak to Douglas Fraser now. Douglas, what has the reaction been from UK and Scottish leaders to the latest comments by Mr Trump?
Well, Laura, there's clearly cause for alarm there, as he said he would. Donald Trump took aim at America's rival for dominance of the world economy, China. It faces 10% tariffs on everything it sells into America. But President Trump is not just taking aim at economic rivals, he also walloped his close neighbours and allies much harder with a 25% tariff or tax on the value of imports from Canada and Mexico. That's to put pressure on them for the flow of people and drugs across America's borders, with the Mexicans today securing a month's delay but paying a price for that. It's also to raise a lot of money for the US government. And if the European Union is next, as the President indicated, the UK, as an outsider following Brexit, might hope to be overlooked in those trade wars between global giants. But we're unlikely to go unscathed. Britain sells luxury goods, from cars to Scotch whisky and salmon. A lot of Scots are employed in back office support for US banks, and that service sector may be less affected by the focus that we're seeing on the trade in goods. Both governments in Scotland agree. They hope they can steer Donald Trump, using his personal connections with Scotland, away from unilateral action on trade with the UK.
This is a deeply unsettling moment for all of us, because we've all prided ourselves on the ability to trade freely across the world, and now the tariffs that are coming from the United States pose a significant threat to that free trade. Now, obviously, we don't know any implications for Scotland. I've made it very clear that I want to make sure that we are protected from any tariffs, because I don't want to see good Scottish companies put at a disadvantage.
We've got a really long-standing relationship with the United States. We'll look forward to working closely with the President to make the case that trade is in all of our interests. It's in the interests of the American consumer and the Scottish consumer. We'll be making that case vigorously on the basis of our really long-standing and indeed special relationship.
And Douglas, you mentioned some of the businesses that could be affected. What have they been saying today?
Well, there's agreement that this is, as the First Minister put it there, a deeply unsettling moment. Few wish to draw attention to the risk that they face. That, of course, would give the White House the leverage it seeks to get others to do as it wishes. And even if Britain avoids tariffs on its exports to the USA, the whole economic and trade system is being severely disrupted and rattled. And while the UK government says it wants to reset its relationship with the European Union, that would be difficult if Britain's also trying to appease Donald Trump by aligning more with America. The tariffs in the US and the EU bring inflation in prices, which can infect the wider economy across borders, keeping interest rates higher than they would be otherwise. Because trade has made countries and billions of people better off. Reducing trade makes people worse off. But Donald Trump has made a judgment that he represents Americans who have lost out in jobs and in the living standards that they used to enjoy through the opening up of trade.
OK, Douglas Fraser, Business and Economy Editor, thank you for your thoughts. The mother of a teenager who took his own life has told an inquiry that she has to live with her decision to allow him to be placed in a locked adult psychiatric ward. Harris MacDonnell took his own life in 2020 at the age of 19. His mother, a former paediatric consultant, has been giving evidence at a court hearing into the circumstances surrounding his death. Cameron Buttle has this report, and a warning: some of the details in it are distressing.
The MacDonnell family were all in court today to hear the inquiry into Harris's death. His father, sister and two brothers sat through all the hearing, there to support his mother as she gave evidence. Dr. Jane MacDonnell, a former paediatric consultant, told the fatal accident inquiry into his death that she had been unable to cope when Harris's behaviour started to deteriorate when he was 16 years old. He had climbed out onto the roof of the family home in the village of Liliesleaf, and he had threatened to throw himself off. He had also told his GP that he'd had suicidal thoughts. Dr. MacDonnell said, "We were shocked about what he had said, that he'd had these suicidal thoughts. We were very frightened. We felt things were getting out of control. I didn't know what to do. I was just so worried about him. How was I going to be able to watch him 24 hours a day? I just needed some help with him. I tried to do it on my own, but I was just so out of my depth." Harris had to be admitted to an adult psychiatric ward as there were no spaces in the young persons units in Glasgow, Edinburgh or Dundee. Dr McDonnell said the family originally thought it was the best thing for Harris to be admitted to the Huntlyburn Hospital near Melrose, as it was the best place for his care and security. But the inquiry heard that within a few months, Dr McDonnell regretted the decision not to keep Harris at home. She said, "I should never have let him go. I have to live with that." Earlier, the inquiry had heard that Harris had tried to abscond from the Huntlyburn Hospital on several occasions. On one occasion, he threw himself out of a moving car because he was so desperate not to go back to the adult unit. In an essay he wrote sometime later, he said, "At least I will go to a real hospital now." In the essay, he also wrote about how he avoided other adult patients, how he could hear screaming. He would eat his meals quickly so he could get back to his room, as the screaming wasn't so loud there. The inquiry before Sheriff Peter Patterson continues tomorrow. Cameron Buttle, reporting Scotland, Jedburgh Sheriff Court.
And if you are suffering distress or despair and need support, including urgent support, a list of organisations that can help is available at bbc.co.uk/action line. Or you can call for free to hear recorded information on 0800 066 066. Now, a deposit return scheme for bottles and cans is designed to reduce scenes like these of discarded litter clogging up our landscapes. Today is the deadline for bids to run the scheme in Scotland, which comes at the end of a long and drawn-out process. The Scottish one has effectively been merged into a UK-wide system, due to be implemented here by 2027. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane has more.
At the picturesque head of Loch Long lies one of Scotland's dirtiest secrets, a litter sink depositing more than 60,000 items onto the shores of Arica each year.
You see people pulling into this car park right here behind us to take their shot down the glen here, but of course in the foreground you've got all this plastic rubbish.
The prevailing wind drives the litter up the glen, where it gets stuck in the seaweed, making it impossible to clear. Keeping litter out of the water in the first place is a crucial part of the answer.
How frustrating have these last few years been for you?
These last few years have been frustrating for us. We've been campaigning for a decade to see the deposit return scheme come into action. We really hope to see it get over the line in October 2027. So there's a lot of hope there, and that would lead to litter reduction. It would lead to a cleaner environment for everyone.
Here in Ireland, where the scheme was supposed to follow Scotland's, they've just celebrated its first anniversary, and customers are now well used to it.
So talk me through how this works.
So basically what you do is you come in with the empty bottle, you put it into the machine, and once it's empty and it's proper DRS logo on it, it'll squash it and then it'll proceed onto the screen where you hit the payout button. It'll spit out a receipt, and then you can redeem the tender or the amount of money on the receipt at the till.
With kayaks, and they go by foot.
Its success is most pronounced in the waterways like the River Dodder and seashores, where litter pickers are seeing far fewer bottles and cans. This environmentalist founded an organisation which has been monitoring the shores since the 1980s.
We saw peaks of particularly plastic, wines and plastic bottles, peaks of over 60 plastic bottles per 500 metres of shore. And now, this autumn, the lowest level ever.
All right, Mario, how's your day been?
The company, which runs the scheme on a not-for-profit basis, is expecting to record its 1 billionth returned item later this week. It's already exceeding its targets, with people being driven to participate for different reasons.
People want their money back. There's the social side of things, so there's been a huge amount of community activity and charity activity that's getting the buy-in from the public. And then there's obviously the environmental benefit.
Deposit return schemes across Europe have shown they're effective at tackling problems like this, but it'll be at least 2 more years before ours takes effect. Kevin Keane reporting Scotland.
Well, they're going to be talking more about this shortly over on the news at 7 on the BBC Scotland channel. Amy Irons is here. Who are you hearing from tonight, Amy?
Yes, well, we're going to be hearing from environmental scientist and climate campaigner Laura Young on this very scheme, Laura. And we're also going to be getting her take on what she thinks Scotland needs to do to try and prepare for extreme weather events. That's ahead of a special programme airing tonight, looking back at just the devastating effects of Storm Ailwind just over a week ago. As well as that on the programme, Glasgow City Council, they've just written to 2,500 6,000 vacant property owners as they try and tackle the city's housing crisis. And we'll be hearing from one councillor who says the current situation is just unsustainable. As well as that, we're going to be joined by this year's traditional young musician of the year, Ellie Beaton, hoping for a little sing-song, Laura. So she'll be joining us in the studio.
Good stuff. I hope you'll be joining her as well, Amy. Thank you.
I don't know about that.
And that is all over on The Seven shortly on the BBC Scotland channel. OK, to some of the day's other stories now. And part of the M8 motorway was shut for more than 6 hours after police received a report of a man with a weapon. Officers temporarily shut the entire motorway at junction 6 eastbound for Newhouse and Chapel Hall after receiving the call shortly before 9 o'clock. It reopened a few hours later, but the slip road at Eurocentral remained closed for most of the day before reopening at 4:30. And rock legends ACDC have announced they will play their first Scottish concert in a decade this summer. The group will play 12 dates across 10 countries before concluding their tour at Edinburgh's Murrayfield Stadium on the 21st of August. Although they were formed in Australia in 1973, the band have a loyal Scottish fan base through Scottish-born members Bon Scott and Angus and Malcolm Young. Now, if you're a cat lover, you might want to look away now, because a group which advises the Scottish Government on animal welfare has floated the idea of banning cats from some areas in order to protect wildlife. Other suggestions include containment measures, whereby cats' movements would be restricted. A government spokesperson originally said they would consider the recommendations, but today the First Minister categorically ruled them out, as Suzanne Allen reports.
Here at the Meow Cafe in Glasgow, cats rule the roost. But could your feline friend be banned from parts of the country? The Scottish Animal Welfare Commission, which advises ministers on animal welfare, has urged the Scottish Government to commission a report that would look into the advantages and disadvantages of restrictions on introducing cats in certain parts of the country.
This report suggests that in some parts of Scotland, cats could be banned because of their threat to other wildlife. It also suggests containment, so some cats could be kept indoors or even in an enclosure made by their owners.
We asked people in Inverness what they thought of potential cat restrictions.
Our cat stays inside anyway.
We've got an indoor
time,
cat
so.
because we don't want to get run over.
Yeah, basically.
So I think it would be bad to enforce a cat ban.
Yeah, but for us, it wouldn't.
But for us, I'd be quite happy with a cat ban.
So.
Yeah.
Possibly would be, but it'd be really hard to implement, I think, because cats are so sporadic. They just go where they like. So
purely outdoor cats can be risks to like bird and like wildlife and stuff. So I can kind of understand a ban on possibly outdoor cats in areas where the birds are endangered.
Today, there's been confusion about what this means exactly. On Radio 4's Today programme, a member of the Commission said we could follow Australia's example of cat containment.
We suggested a range of different options to them and thinking about ways of containing cats so they cannot get out and carry out some of the activities that we've been concerned about in terms of Scotland's biodiversity.
So you'd have to keep your cat in the house or what, on a lead if you want to take that cat
Potentially, yes.
But in an interview with broadcasters this afternoon, John Swinney had this to say.
We have absolutely no intention of banning cats.
So you're clarifying you're not considering an option to ban them in certain parts of Scotland to protect wildlife?
There's no way that's going to happen.
Cat charities are against the idea, but say the report does contain some good ideas.
There's lots that we can welcome in these recommendations as well, both around promoting responsible pet ownership and particularly the move to compulsory microchipping of pet cats in Scotland.
Hello, lovely cats.
Back at the Meow Cafe, the felines are taking today's developments in their stride. Suzanne Allen reporting Scotland.
OK, let's get tonight's sport now with Lewis Irons and transfer deadline day.
Always a fun day, Laura. Yes,
busy.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Hello there. Yes, the clock is ticking and football fans across the country are updating their club's social media feeds by the minute. Yes, it is transfer deadline day, the last chance that teams have to sign players until the summer. And some clubs are more desperate than others to get business done, not least Aberdeen, who have already been busy in this month's window, but want to add even more players after a dreadful run of form. Saturday's 2-0 defeat to Hibernian means they haven't won a league game in 14 attempts.
Everybody's working hard, but the starting point for me right now is myself and the staff of the players are here. We have to step up a lot to give more, and then what happened the rest, let's see. When you sign this contract to represent Aberdeen Football Club, you have to understand it's about, we have high ambitions in this club, and it's not easy to get these ambitions. You have to give everything you can, every minute of the game, every week in the trainings, and do more.
And I can welcome our sports reporter Jane Lewis, who's keeping up with all of the business on a busy day. Jane, we've just heard from the Aberdeen manager Jimmy Tulane there. Has he been able to bolster his squad yet?
Yeah, he wants to strengthen his squad, doesn't he, given that run of form that they're on, 14 games without a win. And yes, he has today. They've signed a defender, Mats Nuester, was at Ferencvaros, most recently been playing his football in Denmark, so he is signed on the dotted line from Aberdeen's point of view. They also want to bring in a striker as well, maybe no surprise on that front as well. And Ode Bada is a name that's very much in the frame. No confirmation done, no deal done yet, but certainly one for the watching.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's also been some other action as well in the transfer window on deadline day. Rangers have been busy, although a strange one for them. They've got a man, but he's not coming through the door just yet. They've got Lyle Cameron from Dundee on a pre-contract. That means that he will be arriving through the doors at Ibrox, but not until the summer. So one in at Rangers. We can see Lyle Cameron there. He will be a Rangers player in the summer. One in at Rangers. What about Celtic, I hear you asking? Well, let's hear from their manager, Brendan Rodgers, shall we?
Nothing at this stage. Clearly, we want to improve the squads. A lot of work going on behind the scenes to try and do that, and hopefully by Monday we'll come out of it with a strong squad to finish the season.
Well, it sounds like he wants some players in then, Jane. What's the latest there?
Yeah, he says that he wants to come into this transfer window, wants to come out of it, stronger than he came into it. So he wants to do business. Obviously, they've lost Kyogo. He was a massive loss for them, a massive influential player. They will be looking for a striker, one would have thought. They'll also be looking for a left back. That's because Alex Valle has gone back to Barcelona, and then he's gone out on loan from there as well. So they've lost him too. They wanted to try and get Kieran Tierney, of course, from Arsenal. We know he's coming in the summer. They wanted to try and get in January to strengthen that left-back side. Arsenal said that's not happening, so they are looking elsewhere. And the name of Jeffrey Schlupp of Crystal Palace, who can play in several positions actually, he is a player who potentially will be moving to Celtic. And I should just add, from a Celtic point of view, they did make an inquiry for Lennon Miller of Motherwell. Motherwell said, we don't want to sell just yet.
Well, plenty to keep an eye on in this transfer window. Well, Jane Lewis, we better keep you, not keep you any longer and go keep up tabs and all of that.
It could be a late one, Lewis. It could be late.
Very late indeed. Thanks, Jane. OK, to rugby now, and Scotland head coach Gregor Townsend says his players need to be better than they were against Italy if they're to stand a chance of beating Six Nations champions Ireland in Edinburgh this weekend. The Scots got their campaign off to a flying start with 2 early tries, but Italy grew into the match and at one point levelled things up at 19-all. However, a Hugh Jones hat-trick eventually proved the inspiration in a 31-19 victory. A great start, but plenty to think about ahead of Sunday's showdown at Murrayfield.
There is threats from this Irish side. There's not just on the pitch in the starting 15, but the depth that they have in Irish rugby is an envy to a lot of other countries. So it's going to be a hard afternoon. You know, look at the record. The record is not very good from a Scottish perspective, not good at all. But we've got our monkey off the back in other games in the last few years, you know, down in Wales, obviously at Twickenham over a number of years. So you feel that if it's going to happen, it's due to happen now. And it's probably our best opportunity with how we've been playing. You know, Ireland are a brilliant side, but there is moments when there is a few chinks in the armour, especially in their defence recently. You know, they conceded points at the weekend, which they haven't done for a while. So there is an opportunity, but it's going to take a huge performance from Scotland.
Well, Ireland are aiming to become the first country to win the Six Nations 3 times in a row. They got off their campaign to a great start with what ended up being a comfortable victory over England. The hosts turned it on in Dublin after a tight first half, eventually winning 27-22. and this is how the standings look. Very early days, of course, but it is the top 2 who meet at Murrayfield on Sunday. What an incentive for Scotland. Wales at the bottom will be trying to avoid a second straight wooden spoon. And this is what's still to come. Ireland are in Edinburgh this weekend. Sorry, we've just lost that. Then there are a couple of rest weeks either side of Scotland's trip to Twickenham before they host Wales and then close off the championship against France in Paris. What a game that will be on Saturday, the 15th of March. So, Laura, we look forward to all of those. Pity I couldn't show you.
Yeah, absolutely. We will get back to that, though. OK, thank you, Lewis. Now, the BBC Scotland's Young Traditional Musician of the Year has been named. Singer Ellie Beaton from Aberdeenshire took top honours in the competition last night after previously making it to the final in 2021.
I'm absolutely in shock. Very grateful. Thank you to all the judges and that. Yeah.
And is there anyone in particular maybe you'd like to thank or anything you want to say whilst you're here?
My mum and dad, firstly. They're there. To everybody that's came and for the North East as well. Couldn't have done it without being from there.
Oh, well done to her. OK, Christopher is here with the weather. How's it looking?
Well, it's been quite a grey start to the week, hasn't it, Laura? However, it will improve through the week. High pressure takes over and there'll be some sunshine for many of us.
Promising.
But some rain around at the moment. Thanks very much indeed. Very good evening to you. It's also been quite a windy day, actually, particularly across parts of the northwest. But as I mentioned to Laura, there are changes on the way. Let's see what's happening. We started the week with low pressure towards Iceland. Weather fronts bringing rain, quite a strong wind, but high pressure moves in midweek onwards. That will dry things up, settle things down, and hopefully some sunshine. So, into this evening, we've got some heavy rain across the west and northwest. As it moves south and eastwards, it will be persistent across parts of the southwest. So there is a Met Office yellow warning for that heavy rain across Dumfries and Galloway. Elsewhere, the rain tracking eastwards, but it's slow moving. Temperatures 8 or 9 Celsius, so it's largely mild. First thing tomorrow, and it's quite a wet start across central and southern Scotland. That rain really hanging around through the course of the morning, probably only really clearing into the afternoon. However, as we head through towards the afternoon, the earlier rain does clear away, and then we're left with a bit of a gap. Some think drier and brighter. This is around about mid-afternoon, 3 o'clock. Temperatures 6 to 9 Celsius, but you can see more wet weather pushing in across the northwest. Quite heavy at times, and still quite breezy as well across parts of the west and northwest from a west-southwesterly direction. Into tomorrow evening, that wet weather still with us. Wintry across the higher ground, that clears, and then further wintry showers moving in. A lot going on. But this is midweek onwards. As I mentioned, high pressure moving in, just quietening things down, and it will be a good bit drier and brighter. Still a few showers coming in on those westerly winds. Wintry across the higher ground, rain for most, drier in the east and the south, and temperatures around 6 to 8 Celsius. Bear in mind today it was 13 degrees in the Highlands, so it will be feeling cooler. Here's why. We've got high pressure, but the air mass is cooler, so it's drier and brighter and sunnier, but it will be cooler. I know which one I prefer. There's Thursday then. It's a dry day, a bright day, some winter sunshine, and temperatures by afternoon 7 to 9 Celsius. That's the forecast for now.
Thank you, Christopher. And that is reporting Scotland for now. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Join me then if you can. In the meantime, from all of us here, enjoy your evening. Good night.